Okay, so now I've got my introduction written, whether that was by me or my partner, and now we're going to look at how we would write a conclusion. So I go all the way down to the bottom of my report. And guys, when I'm writing a conclusion, the conclusion is what you write to wrap up your report. It's the final section that wraps up all of your different ideas from your report that you had written, okay? It brings it to a close. It should be very clear when someone's done reading your conclusion that it's done. That's all they needed to get from the information, and that was your report, okay? So when I think about my report on melting polar ice, I have to think about how I want to wrap up my report. And so to conclude mine, I feel like I need to wrap up my ideas, but not only that, I need to remind people why this topic matters so much, because that was something that I had said in the beginning of like, it's important for all of us to remember and to understand the problem of melting polar ice. So I need to remind my audience of that when I'm writing my conclusion down here. Okay. Not only that, but I think it's important then to connect this topic to my readers' own lives, because it's the things that they can do to help, because it's important to connect that with them. So I think that I'll mention a couple things that my readers can do to help make a difference as well. So as I'm doing this, I have to think about, what can I write to wrap up my ideas and bring the report to a close? How can I remind readers why this topic matters? And what might I write to help readers understand the connection between their own lives and all the stuff that they learned in my report that they just spent time reading? Okay, so here's how I'm going to model my conclusion. And I'm going to mark it as conclusion right now, so it's obvious for my partner that this is the conclusion, and I would probably put my name up here as well. So I know, for me, when I'm grading it, I know who wrote it. Again, I indent, and I'm going to start my conclusion like this. The next 50 to 100 years will be a crucial time for anyone who cares about the melting polar ice and its effects. Okay, so right there, tying to people. Anyone that cares about this and the effects of it, it's a crucial time for us. Okay. Will sea levels around the world rise, permanently flooding coastal cities? So a question for them to consider. Will more giant ice shelves disintegrate? Like the Larsen B? I spelled that incorrectly. So another question for them to consider. Will more of them disintegrate just like the Larsen B, which they had just learned about, so it ties back to that? Will global weather patterns change? Patterns change because of the polar ice melt? Affecting farming and food supplies? So another question for them to consider. And then I'm going to tie back to scientists, who I talked about previously in my piece. Scientists hope that these questions will have happy answers, but the real decision is up to us. So again, putting that right on my readers, like, this is important for us. This is why it's important for us. We can make a difference by using energy saving devices at home by walking or biking instead of driving cars, by supporting energy sources that do not release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Spelled that one. Atmosphere, and by writing to our representatives in Congress about the issue. Working together, we can find solutions to solve the problem of melting polar ice. Okay, so in this final concluding paragraph, again, I'm going to think about, did I connect to my audience and why this is important to them? Did I give more information tying back to my piece? Did I give them a reason for why it's important? And yeah, I did. I talked about the people when I said in the next 50 to 100 years, the next 50 to 100 years will be a crucial time, and how that we are the ones that can make the choices and make the difference. I gave examples. And then I gave one last wrap-up sentence that says, working together, we can find solutions to solve the problem of melting polar ice. That is information that is helpful to my audience. That tells me I've tied up everything I was learning about with melting polar ice, and I left the readers with something to take home. One thing I want you to know to sixth graders, I know that sometimes when we write conclusions, we want to just get it done and be like, all right, that's it. I wrote my concluding paragraph. Take note of how long this is. This concluding paragraph is possibly, and the introduction as well, are possibly the most important paragraphs in your piece. Introduction is because it gets your reader hooked and tells them what they're going to read about and makes them want to read. Conclusion, it's the last thing they read. It's the thing that you leave people with about your piece. You've got to make sure that that is done strong. Okay? Watch the video below with the assignment, and I'll explain how you guys are going to decide who does what.